I still remember the exact moment everything began to fall apart. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, almost invisible. The kind of quiet damage no one notices until it's too late. My father is 78 years old. He spent 40 years working as a mechanic, the kind of man who fixed other people's problems without ever complaining about his own. After my mother passed, that small house in our neighborhood was all he had left. It wasn't just a home. It was his last piece of peace. And then she moved in. At first, HOA Karen seemed like any other neighbor. Polite smile, short waves, the kind of person you wouldn't think twice about. But within weeks, the letters started showing up. The first complaint was about the lawn. According to her, it was overgrown. It wasn't. I had mowed it just days before. My father even stood outside that afternoon, staring at the grass like it had betrayed him. I thought it looked fine, he said quietly. I told him it was nothing, just a misunderstanding. We fixed it anyway. But then came the next complaint. And the next. Trash bins left out too long. The porch light too dim. The car parked slightly off-center. Each letter felt smaller than the last, but somehow heavier. My father started waking up earlier, walking around the house, checking everything twice, sometimes 3 times. I'd find him standing by the window, watching the street like he was waiting for something to go wrong. "She's watching," he said once. I laughed it off. I wish I hadn't. Because she was. One afternoon, I came home and found my father sitting on the front steps. Not working, not fixing anything, just sitting there, staring at the ground. "She took pictures," he said. "Of what?" "Everything." I looked up and saw her across the street, phone in hand, pretending to scroll, but I knew better. She didn't even look away when she noticed me watching. That was the first time something felt wrong. Not annoying, not frustrating. Wrong. The complaints escalated after that. Formal warnings, fines, notices taped to the door like we were criminals. I tried to reason with the HOA board. I showed them proof, receipts, photos, even timestamps. But every time, it was the same response. "We've received multiple reports." Reports, not evidence, not facts, just reports. And somehow, her voice was louder than ours. My father stopped going outside as much. The man who used to sit on the porch every evening, waving at passing neighbors, now stayed inside. Curtains half closed. Lights dim. "You don't have to worry about it," I told him one night. But he just nodded without looking at me. That's when I realized he didn't believe me anymore. Weeks passed, and the tension kept building. Every knock on the door made him flinch. Every envelope made his hands shake. And then one morning, I walked into the kitchen and saw something I'll never forget. He was standing there, holding one of the HOA letters, and his hands were trembling so badly, he couldn't even open it. "I don't want to read it," he said. That broke something in me. Because this wasn't about rules anymore. This was fear. I stepped outside that day and walked straight to her house. I knocked once, twice. When she opened the door, she didn't look surprised. "You need to stop," I said. "He's an old man. He's not hurting anyone." She smiled. Not kindly, not politely, cold. "If he can't follow the rules," she said, "maybe he shouldn't live here." I stood there stunned, waiting for something, anything, human. But there was nothing. And that's when I understood this wasn't going to stop. Not because we fixed things, not because we explained, but because she didn't want it to. And somehow, no one else seemed to care. I wish I could tell you that was the worst part. But it wasn't. Because what came next is what finally broke him. The next few weeks felt heavier than anything we had lived through before. It wasn't just the complaints anymore. It was the constant pressure. The feeling that no matter what we did, it would never be enough. My father changed in ways I didn't think were possible. He stopped fixing things around the house. Tools sat untouched in the garage, collecting dust. The same hands that once built and repaired everything now rested quietly in his lap most of the day. He barely ate. He barely spoke. And every time I asked him what was wrong, he'd give me the same answer. "I'm just tired." But it wasn't that kind of tired. One afternoon, I came home early and found him standing in the living room, staring at the wall. No TV, no radio, just silence. "What are you doing?" I asked. He hesitated before answering. "Listening." "For what?" He looked toward the window. "For her." That's when it hit me just how deep this had gotten. He wasn't living in his home anymore. He was waiting inside it. The fines kept coming. More aggressive now. Final warnings. Legal language. Deadlines. Threats of further action. I went back to the HOA board again, this time more firm, more desperate. I told them everything. About his age, his health, the stress. One of them nodded sympathetically. "We understand," he said. "But rules are rules." That sentence stayed with me, because it didn't matter what we said after that. We had already lost. Neighbors who once waved at us started avoiding eye contact. Doors closed quicker. Conversations ended faster. No one wanted to get involved. And maybe I can't blame them. But it still hurt. The final notice came on a quiet morning. It was placed neatly at the door, like all the others. But this one felt different the moment I picked it up. My father saw it in my hand and didn't ask what it said. He already knew. That night, he didn't come to the dinner table. I found him sitting on the edge of his bed, holding an old photo of my mother. "She loved this house," he said softly. I didn't know what to say. So I just stood there. A few days later, we started packing. Not because we wanted to, because we had to. There was no big fight, no final confrontation, no dramatic moment where everything turned around. Just quiet decisions. Boxes filled slowly. Memories wrapped carefully. Silence in every room. On the last day, my father walked through the house one final time. His hand brushed against the walls like he was trying to hold on to something that was already gone. When we stepped outside, I noticed her standing across the street again, watching, just like always. This time, my father didn't look at her. He just kept walking. We left that day without anyone stopping us, without anyone asking if we were okay, without anyone saying a word. And that's the part that stays with me the most. Not what she did, but how easily everyone else let it happen. Because sometimes, the hardest truth isn't that someone hurt you. It's realizing that no one cared enough to stop it.